Okay, we have a very special episode of Cosmic Road today where we are joined by the one and only Kosta Makreas. Welcome to the show, Kosta.
Hi, thank you very much, Jack. I really appreciate being here and meeting you and your audience.
I've been following Costa for years. I love him. He's got a great take on things. He's an experiencer and the founder of the People's Disclosure Movement. And I want to get the name right, the Global CE-5 Initiative.
Perfect.
Okay, yeah,
Nailed it.
nice,
Yeah.
nice. And you organize like monthly mass CE-5 events, right?
Yeah, I've been doing that since 2010. So we're in our 14th year of monthly ET Contact global events.
That's amazing. And have you had a lifetime of contact experience?
No, well, not that I know of. I mean, I think a lot of us have, once we've had an experience that we can identify as such, myself and other people, we look back over our lives, over things we can't explain that happened to us. And every now and then you go, oh, that was that. That was a contact experience. I was too young, whatever, didn't recognize it. But so mine may have been lifelong, but certainly starting in 2006 it was very conscious and hasn't stopped since then.
Yeah, mine was the same way. Looking back on my childhood and some early experiences I had, I know some stuff happened, but I rationalized it away. And it wasn't until experiences began happening to me as an adult that I realized, oh wait, that's what that was.
Exactly.
So what happened in 2006?
Well, let me back up just a little bit. I always had a lifelong interest in what we call UAP now, but was called UFO more generally then. And I first picked up a book when I was, I don't know, 10 or 11, that was written by one of the contactees from the 50s and 60s, the first wave of experiencers. I looked at that paperback and it was all about that person's contact experience. I don't remember who the author was, but it had pictures of the classic UFO shaped objects and all that. And even though I know there were people faking things like that, I as I read, I understood there were enough people who were having what I thought were genuine experiences, you know. So that set the stage. Fast forward to 2006, uh, I decided to I think Google UFO because I had some time on my hands. Oh my God, try that sometime. 30 million results. But back then, I found a group that, as a result of that Googling UFO, I found a group in Mount Shasta, which is about 4 hours north of here. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and went up there for a week to do this new thing called CE-5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is our human-initiated interactive communication with cosmic friends and family. So during that week, I had three experiences, just packed into that week, two of which were up close and personal. And that was my first contact. I sent you some pictures of those, and I can talk more at length about those, when the time comes. But that week was pivotal. There comes a time when you your rational mind says, wait a minute, that wasn't supposed to happen. This contact, this thing that just occurred in front of me and a bunch of other people. And yet, when you try to dismiss it, you can't. And then you have another one. And so you start seeing the fact that you're suddenly out of the box. You're not thinking within the box of the normal 3D scientific laws of physics as we know them, because what you've just seen and experienced violated some of this stuff. So, I like to say that when this happens to people, and maybe this happened to you, Jack, that when you have that experience that's up close and personal and you can't explain it away, you have to decide what you're going to do with it. You either box it in, just pack it away because you don't want to talk about it. It could be dangerous. Breaks up relationships, people lose jobs, people get committed over this, or actually they used to a whole lot more, like in the early 60s when the public wasn't so open-minded relatively as they are now. So you have to decide, do I keep it in or do I stand on a rooftop and start shouting to the world, hey, look what happened to me? Well, I kind of decided to do the latter.
I'm
My
glad you
rooftop
did.
is, yeah, maybe you did too. And I know lots of other people that have done the same. as well as I know a lot of other people in the community that have had to, for one good reason or another, uh, had to stuff it, keep it in until something happened years later where they were able to talk about it. Well, my rooftop was the internet. That's where I stood up, and I decided to start reaching out and finding other people across the globe who, like me, had had experiences that we would not deny and we wouldn't let others talk us out of. Like, move right along, nothing to see here. That was mass hypnosis, that was Chinese balloons, that was swamp gas. No, no, none of that. I know what I know. I saw what I saw. So I set about trying to find lots of people who had had experiences like myself, because there's nothing like community and sharing and learning from others, as well as to teach other people. Because, after all, what had happened to me during that week, all I did was sit in a chair with a group of people, comfortably under the stars, and use a protocol where we open our hearts, our minds, we connect with the group energetically, psychically, and then with just visualization, and reaching out with our hearts and again, our minds, and with intention and with goodwill, high vibration stuff. That's all we did. We made contact that way. And that's the way that it's been working for years. I will say that a lot of people have different protocols. But when people come to etletstalk.com to join, I have a series of 7 steps that they can use that I use. And yet I know that some people will tweak some of the steps to align with a different way that they like to do things. But the bottom line is, at the core, making this contact is what I say is your goodwill. If you're opening your heart, if you're there with a clear intention, benevolence, and an expectation that this really can happen, and you use your visualization, that's all you need. You don't have to be a Zen master, but it's the purity of motive and the high vibrations that will get you the contact. And I've just seen this work for people uh, over the years, by the thousands. And that's why you can see, I'm still excited about it, because there's still people coming on and waking up every day and wanting to do this and succeeding at it. So in a capsule, that's my story. My life was never the same after that one week in September of 2006. So here I am. We're 18 years later, still working, organizing a community, the People's Disclosure Movement, and meeting people all over the world and learning a lot about even things that I'm pretty open-minded and creative, but my mind still gets blown by the stories I hear from people of different kinds of contact they have. So it's an exciting life that way, and there's just a bigger community of experiencers, as you probably know, than any of us has really realized. And that's what I'm about right now, is telling people that we're not alone. And I don't mean we're not only not alone in the cosmos, right? It's populated and they're here, but we're also not alone horizontally with each other. We have a lot of human company, experiencers like ourselves, and it's been my mission to help us find each other so that we can support each other when the rest of the world is telling us we're crazy, or our partners are doing that, or whatever. We still have each other as a support group to kind of stay sane, stay grounded, and also to learn from each other, because I don't think no two people have the same experience. I like to say that every one of us, when we have an experience, it's like a piece of a jigsaw. I don't think it's certainly above my pay grade to be able to see the whole big picture of what contact is about with all these galactic civilizations that are here. I don't see that big picture, but I know that when I get together with other people and hear what they have to say, they contribute another piece of that jigsaw, the way that you assemble a puzzle, and you start seeing a better picture when you combine your experiences, share what you know. You get a little bit more of an inkling that bigger things are happening than you realize, and you're beginning to see what those are. So that's kind of my life in a nutshell now. It's all about community, both here on Earth with people, and the continuing growth of the community with the cosmic, our galactic friends and family.
That's amazing. Now, you said the galactic civilizations. Now, are they, 3D beings within our universe? Are they other dimensional? How do you perceive them? Can you tell us anything about these beings and their civilizations?
All of the above. We don't, there isn't a box that holds just one answer like that. Transdimensional, from other physical systems. Uh, I mean, all of the above. And sometimes if you make contact, it's okay. This is all about starting a dialogue, right? This is like discovering relatives you didn't know you had, because they told me in 2010 via telepathy that we should not look at them as gods. That's just wrong. We should consider them instead elder brothers, sisters, and cousins. They literally said we're family. So that's the way I frame it. This is family coming back. The ones we're in contact with, they say they love us. They're here to mentor us, to help us through what's really a critical stage in our evolution right now, where we can either have a breakthrough as a species or a breakdown. I'm on the side of breakthrough. I'm on that team. And I'm always trying to encourage people to have a cautiously positive outlook that there's more of us on that team and we have a lot more help from the cosmics than we realize if we only would ask, make communication with them, and talk to them as if they were that older brother, sister, or cousin. You know, if any of us have been lucky enough to have an older sibling, I didn't, but to maybe have a mentor, a relative that you met who's been down the road a little bit further, and you can always go to them for advice or to help you uh, break down a wall of understanding or something. I think that's the way our star families and friends want us to approach them. It's a co-creative process where they're willing to mentor and help us with what they know, what they've achieved, because after all, they didn't destroy themselves. They're here visiting, and they've got technologies that are blowing our minds when we see them in the sky and when we experience other things like healings that happen through communication with them. So they've got a lot in the ball game here, and their willingness to share it only requires that we meet them halfway. And that's the part of CE-5 where we make the human initiated contact and just start that dialogue. Talk to them as friends, like, hey, we're having problems with this thing on Earth or this thing in my life. Do you have any suggestions? The same way that you would talk with a trusted relative again.
Okay, so you say you have communicated directly with these beings, telepathically. Who were they?
The ones that are in my lineage are Syrian from Sirius, the star, the brightest star in our sky, and the Pleiades. Now, that won't come to any surprise to many people watching this because a lot of experiencers, right away they say, "Oh, Pleiadian, Syrian," as well as other things. But my contact has been with those two groups. And the universal language is telepathy. I'm not a great telepath, but I get some things, and it's really up to me to develop it. These are paranormal powers. I'm sure you and your audience are aware, are like muscles that if we don't exercise them, they may not develop, but certainly if we do exercise them and try to use them and develop them, they will develop. So making contact with our star friends just requires making the attempt and getting better at it. And telepathy is one of those easiest universal languages ways that we have in common that they can talk to us.
So the beings that you're in communication with, Pleiadians, let's call them, are they the human-looking beings, or how would you describe them?
The one that I've seen is humanoid, and he showed up on the ground with my wife and myself. And you have a picture of that. I
Okay, yeah,
sent
yeah,
you.
let's get into the pictures in just a second. But okay, so by humanoid, do you mean it has two arms and two legs, or do you mean it looks like us more or less?
I didn't see a face in that picture,
Gotcha.
but the rest of the body was humanoid. Now, having said that, my wife also is an experiencer, and uh, a picture that I don't have to show you because it happened so spontaneously, she was not able to capture a picture. But we had four, maybe five uh, type 2 gray Arcturians. They identified themselves as from Arcturus, show up in our bedroom in front of her, um, and communicated with her. And she felt waves of love coming off of them. So she wasn't scared, but she was astonished. And they were humanoid. She saw the large head, I think a neck and shoulders, and the beginning of a torso. They were standing behind the foot of the bed, so they had to be physical enough that the physical bed was hiding the lower part of their body. She tells me that she assumes they were bipedal, right? That there were two legs to go with the two arms and the head. So that's an assumption. And that doesn't matter, kind of, because the experience was the experience. It wasn't about do they have two or three legs. It was like love, and they're talking to her, and there's a whole story behind that too. So in that sense, humanoid, but no, they didn't look like Jack or Kosta here, with the facial features we have. She said they had the traditional kind of a big head, skinny, and I think big eyes. She didn't really see a mouth. It might have been a slit and not much of a nose. Now, later on, she encountered at a conference we went to, uh, we actually got to meet Clifford Stone, the famous Clifford
Yeah,
Stone,
yeah.
just a beautiful, sweet man. He's since passed on from this reality, but he had brought a painting to the conference we were at. We were also speakers there, and we got into a conversation with Clifford, and he showed my wife a painting that he had intended to use during his talk, but for some reason just didn't get around to it. And then she looked at the painting and said, "That looks familiar." It turned out to be a painting by an artist friend of Clifford's of a Type 2 gray that had more detail than what my wife had seen. But my wife said, "That's who I saw in that painting in the bedroom." And Clifford right away said, "Oh, those are what we call Type 2 grays." Um, and as if people know about his story, he was um, I think his day job was a cover job while he was in the military. I believe it was the Army. I think some kind of a desk job. But really, he was a first responder at crash retrieval sites. And he had a manual, he would say, where when he saw bodies of a craft that had been brought down or came down, I guess, through a malfunction, he would be able to identify the species. So back then, we're talking the 50s and 60s, they already had manuals. And that's a whole nother part of this thing about what the government knows and what they're hiding. That's not what I'm here to talk about, but I'm just saying anecdotally that the reason Clifford Stone identified that painting as Type 2 gray is because it was in his manual. He said, "Oh yeah, we call those Type 2 grays, it says page 35 or whatever, and they're this, this, and this." So that was known, and he validated what we saw, and it was just wonderful. It's the only time that we ever met him, but it was just a lovely meeting that provided some information and validation for my wife that what she had seen in our bedroom was a species already known to the military and to people like Clifford.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned the Arcturians. The research on the Arcturians seems like they're a pretty good group of guys. I practice Reiki, and it is. I have a friend of mine that is much more sensitive than I am, and with contact and higher level contact, and he believes that the Arcturians are involved in Reiki. If you're familiar with Reiki at all,
I
they
am. I have not personally, but my I have friends that are practitioners. So yes.
So about the Pleiadians and the Arcturians, are they 3D beings in all reality? Are they coming from a different level? Who are these guys?
I don't know the answer to that. I've honestly never asked the question. Uh, they they might be interdimensional, at least the Arcturians we saw, because my wife said that when she had turned out the light, I'm giving this as an example that might give us a clue to answer your question there. She turned out the light in our bedroom and was getting ready to go to sleep, and suddenly they materialized there at the foot of our bed. Now, if they were physical, they'd have to kind of guess knock on the door and be let in. Uh, so they just beamed in, kind of. She saw four of them, maybe five. And again, she felt the waves of love. So love, that high emotion, really got transmitted, whether it was interdimensional or physical. But then they faded out. When they were done communicating with her, they were gone. So that encounter says to me they were, you know, interdimensional and traveling from a higher vibration down to our 3D vibration. Um, but you know what? I don't have the answers to a lot of this. And that's why I'm happy to be in a community where people like you have, again, a little piece of that jigsaw, maybe have part of an answer that helps us get the answer that we want. But again, I'll say I think it's all of the above, 3D, 5D, whatever. They're local. They're what I think when time and space folds into itself, and everything is in that singular point, it's all one. It's all quantum. It's all interconnected anyway. So the labels that we use are for our convenience, right? Um, Sometimes I think it doesn't matter so much where they're from, is like, what do they want, with us, or can we talk, what shall we create together, and then a lot of the other details can be filled in because I'm like you. I grew up, I don't know if you grew up with science fiction, but it
Oh, sure.
was, I read everything I could get my hands on as a kid. And so I loved learning about other worlds, other uh, cities and exotic spaceships and civilizations, on and on and on. And I'm still that same way. So uh, someday when I can sit down and have a cup of coffee with my star friends in the physical, I'll ask all those kinds of questions, like what is your civilization like? What brought you here? I mean, I could do that now if I were a good enough telepath, and I know people who are. They can have a Q&A back and forth as easily as you and I are talking. And I'm envious of that. But again, if I took the time to develop that, it's all on me. I could probably get that good. But for now, sometimes I rely on trusted friends to get those kinds of communications going. And it really enriches everybody.
I guess the reason I'm so interested in whether they're from our physical reality or somewhere else is trying to work out a model of reality and the uber reality. And, if this is a created universe and that other place is the real place that we come from, that would be interesting. And if they come from that place, that could be significant, if these are more metaphysical events. But let's see some of your pictures. Okay, so here is Harate. Am I saying that right?
As far as I know, I've never heard it pronounced, but that was my best guess.
Okay,
Um,
well, tell us about this fascinating image.
yeah, back in 2012, I believe, myself and many friends were having ongoing contact events. And we were at Mount Shasta for another week of making contact again. And we found ourselves on a property that was very dark. It was a beautiful home with a backyard, and I'd say a group of 30 or 40 people were in the circle that week every night doing the contact work. And the area was totally blacked out. We turned the lights out in the house. There were no lights in the environment, so it was like midnight pitch black. And this will become important as I tell the story. After we finished our usual meditation to make contact, sitting out there in the backyard, my wife was seated next to me. I think she was on my left. And in the middle of our circle was a friend of ours who had his camera equipment set up. He was really good. He always knew when something was going to happen in the sky, to be seen, because he would whip around, point his camera, and had a lot of great captures. I think it was very much a psychic thing where he was alerted to. So there he was in the middle of the circle with his equipment on a tripod. He had a digital camera and he had a video too. So we had just come out of the meditation as we're sitting in this circle, again, my wife next to me, and I was a little bit drowsy, but I was startled awake when our friend from the middle of the circle suddenly shouted, "Look, there, behind Hollis and Kosta, look." Um, and hold that thought because I forgot a little bit of the backstory. During that time, we had a friend who was openly Pleiadian. She would talk about it. She did Pleiadian Reiki. Reiki. Sorry
Oh,
about
wow.
that.
Okay, I've got to learn that.
Yeah, and she was always talking about her father, Hirate, who was a captain, a commander of a starship. And she would tell us that at night in her astral body, she would travel up to her father's ship regularly and ask her father, "What am I doing down there? They're freaking crazy down there," talking about humans. He goes, "I want out of here." And he would say to her,
Don't
there,
don't blame
there.
her. Okay, well, yeah, you can.
A lot of people have opinions. I'm not going to tackle that right now, but I do understand. But her father would say, there, you volunteered, remember? You came down to help. You had a mission. Um, and she would go, oh, okay. This is her telling this story. So this was very fascinating for us that she was doing this. And she told us that in our local area here, that her father would, with his starship, would appear. Well, during one of our local contact events with our small group here, she had told us that night that his starship would appear. Well, lo and behold, towards the end of the night, we saw a bright flashing object that was zigzagging over the San Francisco airport in the distance, by the way. So don't let people tell you that just because there's a big airport nearby, that they UFO UAP can't show up. Now, his ship may have been in the upper atmosphere, so like nowhere near ground level. We couldn't tell. But what we saw was a bright blinking light that changed intensity. It blinked and it zigzagged. We counted like 14 different flashes as it moved around, and we know by then what to identify as a plane, a satellite, a helicopter, and all that. It was none of that. This was, as we were told later on by our friend, this was her father. Hirate had shown up. He had made a very definite impression by moving around in a zigzag pattern, changing intensity and the interval of the lighting. And everybody in our group, there were 14 of us at the time, would be standing up and cheering. We were counting 12, 13, 14 flashes. It got the vibe up. So our friend told us, yeah, that was him. Now, fast forward to where I left my story. We had gathered at Mount Shasta for that night in the circle that I was just talking about. Our friend, Pam was her name, said, Father Harati is going to appear again for you guys at that retreat. So, with anticipation, we looked for the same kind of pattern in the sky that night, and it didn't happen at all. So, by the time we were meditating, we did a second meditation where I started the story, and I was a little bit drowsy and I was a little bit disappointed, inwardly. But it's like, well, she said he was going to be here. We didn't see anything up there. And it was at that point that our friend in the middle of the circle, the photographer, the videographer, shouted, look, there between Hollis and Kosta. Hollis is my wife. And like I said, she was to my left. We're just sitting in chairs. He says, behind them, between them, look at that. And I jolted awake and I turned around and I looked and there was nothing but pitch black. The whole area was still pitch black. And I'm going, what is this guy talking about? I don't see anything. We were invited to come to the middle of the circle, and he had a digital camera on a tripod that was pointing right in our direction, which is what he had seen. And the camera had the viewer flipped open on the side. Everyone's seen these. And all of us in the group there, we lined up in front of the viewer of this camera. We all went to the middle of the circle there and lined up. Hollis and I were in the front because we got our butts up there really fast because we wanted to see what he was yelling about. When we looked through the viewfinder of his camera, which was pointed in our direction, what you see here is what we saw in the viewfinder.
That's amazing. I don't know
Now,
what I'm looking at, but it's really
I'll tell you in a
intriguing.
minute what I think it is. Um, but the weird thing is, if we looked above the viewfinder, where we were actually sitting, there's nothing there. So to our unaided physical eye, it was still black. We didn't see anything. But you look at the viewfinder and this is showing up. And you're like rubbing your eyes, going, what the hell? You look up, black, you look down, that. You look up, nothing but black, down that. So anyway, we accepted the fact that this is Hirate. He had shown up on the ground, not in the
But you could
sky,
only see him with the camera. Is that right?
only with a camera. And my friend sent me this picture. And this is not the best one. This is not as high definition as it should be because it was sent to me on my smartphone. Um, so the resolution is even better. The original, which I've lost track of, the friend who had that, but this is good enough. What I think I see is a well-dressed ET. What I see is a collar, and I see what looks like a vest, a torso, a shoulder, and up above where the collar is, what could be a head. Now, some people can actually see a face, and I've never been able to do that. Other people see the brown things up above. They think it's headgear, maybe it's communication gear, teleportation. I don't know. But people think that that area there is where the head is, and the rest is the torso. And it's as if you're looking through a keyhole. You're not seeing the whole, you're only seeing the shape of what you're allowed to peek through and see. So you're not seeing the whole image. But what you can see, my eye, again, it sees a torso, looks like a vest, like a jacket, collar, then a head. If you see something else, I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm just telling you what I see. And other people have agreed with what I see here, and others have seen a little bit more. You make the call, Jack. What do you think?
It's certainly anomalous. I see what might be a torso, and shoulders. But here it looks like there's like two arms coming out. So I don't even know. I would love like this to be remote viewed by like a team of remote viewers or something, to see, under blind conditions, to see if they were able to see what this being is, and potentially even make contact with it, or
Yeah,
him, or her,
or her, or whatever, or it.
yeah, yeah. But
Um,
it's super fascinating though.
yeah, just the fact that it, I often rely on when I have trusted friends that tell me a story like this, I believe them because they're trusted friends, right? But there's nothing like, as you know, when you experience something yourself, and when it's something that doesn't really require any fancy footwork of any kind. What I'm saying is, all I did was stand, and everybody else did the same thing behind us in line. They stood in front of a camera. That's all you had to do was look at the viewfinder and then look at the reality of the physical space where they were now empty chairs where Hollis and I had been sitting, but it was still black. That's all it took. You didn't need radio antennas and $10 million budgets to blast signals into space. We were seeing this with our eyes, and it's not just like a little blob of light. Now it was midnight, so people can't say this was the sun flaring or anything, but people will come up with other explanations. Explain that. That's not a simple flare of any kind, or what are the pixels doing in the camera? I don't know. That looks to me like a full-on picture. He impressed the digital pixels into the viewfinder, and I think he knew that we would be gobsmacked by the fact that he showed up on the viewfinder and didn't show up in our physical space. It's something that really tugs at you. You can't explain that away, right? He's not there, but he's there. He's not there, but he's there. Anyway, I'm going on about that, but you can see it made an impression, and we talked to our friend Pam later on and said we had this experience last night. She wasn't there physically with us, but we contacted her. Uh, and she goes, "Oh, okay. Let me see the picture." She goes, "That was my father." So he did show up. He kept his promise.
Now, why was she so certain that it was her father?
He told her, and I believed her.
Okay, okay. Uh,
Now this is the realm of you have trusted friends, and then you have friends that you don't trust as much, but they're good people because
I
maybe
like
they did too much acid in the 60s. I don't. Or,
no comment.
and no comment. And yeah, I resemble that. No, no, actually, I never touched the stuff. But
Do you
anyway,
know
I know
if her
people that I
father
wouldn't
communicated?
trust. I'm
I'm
sorry, go
sorry.
on.
Do you
Go
know
on.
if her father communicated that to her in a dream or telepathically, or how
No,
she was able to communicate with him?
I think she was in telepathic communication with him all the time. you know so it could be the way she just said it. It's like he was right there with her and probably said, "Yeah, that's me." So in the moment, instantaneously, if you have that telecommunicate, that it's like if you're holding your phone there and your friend is saying, "Yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's him." It's that natural and that fast. That's what I assume. She was very certain. And here's the thing, the parameters all fit because he said he would show up. We had seen an anomalous craft in the sky before. And now in this particular incident, we were told he would show up. And I think he probably has a sense of humor. He knew probably that we'd be looking in the sky all night, like, okay, when's he gonna come? Okay, there was that thing, but where's he? He probably knew we were craning our necks. And just when we were our guard was down and we're going into the disappointment zone, like me, boom, he shows up and it's a surprise like this. If I had to play a joke or a prank, I would do it that way too. I would mess with somebody in a nice way and delight them.
My
And we
my
were
my
delighted.
contacts have often shown me they have a sense of humor, so that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Okay.
Do you want to go on to the orb picture?
Yeah, sure. Hold off on that. I'll tell the story before you display that. Um, During that same week, no, actually, this picture that the story I just told was in 2012, so it was at another time in Mount Shasta again. But the picture you're about to see now happened during my very first week that I alluded to before, where I had two up close personal experiences that changed my life and got me interested in this topic, and I stayed with it now going on 18 years. Um, we were making contact during that week and learning how to identify what's real in the sky and what's anomalous. It was a, kind of UFO UAP 101, CE-5 101, and it was great. We were learning a lot of things. During a break in the action there, we were at the foot of Mount Shasta, which was about 5 miles away. We were in a secluded area in the forest where we had our circle. And again, there were maybe 30, 40 people there as part of the group. So we had a break where everyone got up and got to walk around, got up out of their chairs. Someone came to me with a picture and was holding a digital camera and said, "Look, I was just taking camera of a few people that have become friends here, and look at what showed up." And what he showed me was there was an orb, one or two orbs around the head of the person that he'd taken a picture of. And I said, "What's that? Is that a camera malfunction?" He said, "No, no, these are called orbs. We don't know exactly what they are, but they're appearing in a lot more pictures from what people tell us." I go, "Okay, so it's a new thing." I go, "Hey, could I get something like that for myself?" And my friend said, "Sure." So I went to the edge of the clearing there with the trees in the background and I posed. My friend took a picture of me and I asked, "Well, what did I get?" And there was nothing. It was just me smiling. And I was disappointed again. And I thought, well, let me try again. So this time, lined up again, I posed. And just before my friend clicked the shutter, like an instant before, I had this spontaneous idea. And in my mind, well, I put my right hand over my heart like this. And in my mind, I said, and using my heart, I said, I invite any on planet or off planet beings of light beings, to show up in this picture with me. I love you. And I looked at my friend. My friend clicked the shutter at that moment. And as he clicked it, in a spontaneous, very playful way, I went, ta-da, like that, not knowing what the hell was going to happen, but I was just having fun. I went, ta-da. And the picture you're about to see is what resulted. I asked my friend, did I get an orb or two? Um, and he showed me that I got at least an orb or two.
Nice. Okay, let's go see that right now. Wow,
Yeah,
that is an amazing picture, Costa.
I know. I know. I was as amazed as you are when I saw that. Um, I thought I would have been happy with one or two, just like I had seen. And the guy's going, "Yeah, you got one or 2,000." Uh, um, and being the skeptical kind of person I am, because I'm a left brain scientist, I'm a computer software math kind of geek. And before I got way too excited about this, I thought, let's try to debunk this. So a group of us who were like-minded, we used a couple different cameras, we changed backgrounds. There's volcanic dust on there. We throw the dust in the air, take pictures, experiment to try to duplicate this by some natural means. I have to say the weather was dry. There was no water vapor in the air or anything. So we tried different things, different cameras, and we couldn't reproduce this the way it is. So I leave it at that. People who are haters are going to still come up with something, and I don't care uh, because I was there tried to disprove it, and I have since seen pictures from other people over the years, sort of like this, who can also explain that it wasn't a natural phenomenon.
Yeah, well,
But
I used to do ghost hunting. I'm sorry to interrupt. It just, I used
no,
to
go
do ghost
ahead.
hunting and, we would get orbs all the time. And, some of them were dust particles. Some were definitely not. They would pass through solid walls and objects and materialize from nowhere. And, but you could reproduce something that looked a little bit like that with, by shaking a blanket. And it would be captured on camera looking a lot like those objects, but in a mundane fashion. But none of those dust particles looked anything like that. That is just an amazing shot. Have you
People,
ever talked to Grant Cameron?
oh yeah, been interviewed by Grant a number of years ago, and I know he has all kinds of amazing
Yeah.
pictures and people that reproduce things. I have to
No,
say
no,
that,
no, no, no. I mean, he's got some genuine orb pictures
yeah,
that remind me of this one.
okay. I'm not surprised because in everything that I talk about here, please understand, folks, I don't consider myself special or anointed by heaven or or elite or anything because I get this kind of stuff. I think anybody can get it who has the intention and the open heart and the goodwill to reach out. You'll get all this kinds of stuff and more. I haven't been aboard a ship. I know people that I trust that say they have. So I'm not special, and I'm just saying that I'm just showing here the special things that have happened to me that have lit me up in a good way and inspired me to keep going. And the end of this story is then after I admitted to myself that I believe this to be real, my wife, who's a psychic, she's a really good professional, long-term internal clairvoyant who does channeling and psychic work, thousands of clients over the years. So she's got that paranormal sense well developed. I'm able to talk to my spirit guides through her and have conversations. I took this picture, and in a session with her and with my guides together, I said, "What about this picture? That happened to me." Um, and they said, "That's us on planet and off planet, like what you asked for." They said, "Keep a hard copy of this in your pocket at all times." So this picture, whenever you feel sad, lonely, depressed, pull it out and look at it and remember you're never alone. And when people join ET Let's Talk or in other contexts, I like to offer this as a kind of like a welcome intro. I tell the story and I offer this picture, and my advice to them is create your own or take a look at this whenever you feel sad or lonely. Remember, you're never alone either. None of us is ever alone. I just happen to have, in this instance, a little bit of proof of the fact I'm not. And I need to see that. Words are great, but show me. And this is definitely a way to inspire me and show me that they're all around. I'll say one more thing about this. Uh, People in my community have taken this and examined some of the orbs. They claim they see faces in some of them. They blow them up and they do different Photoshop, not Photoshop, but filtering kind of things to make things look prominent and whatnot, with uh, cool photography. Again, not tricks, not to create something that's not there, but to highlight things. Anyway, they've looked at that and they've sent me results, and I can kind of see a face. You see some eyes and a mouth, not always human, but anyway, that was an interesting aside where people took that the next step for me and did that kind of investigation. As a ghost hunter, you probably had done the same things, right? When you got into your software, you could magnify images, change the color filterings to look for this or that while you're researching it, right?
We
Have
weren't
you
that
done
fancy. We actually did get some fancier equipment right toward the end, but that was
that?
right
Okay.
when COVID hit and kind of shut us down for a long time.
Okay.
At least one of my group members, he didn't leave his house for a year. So uh, yeah, no comment. But okay, anyway, it was what it was. But yeah, we finally did get some fancier equipment, but not in time to analyze a lot of the footage that we had.
Okay. Well, I
But yeah,
appreciate
we didn't have anything like this. We had a lot of orb videos, orb storms. They were smaller, and they weren't as pretty as this, honestly. But they would, come in the hundreds. They would just materialize from nowhere. They would go through doors and solid walls, and occasionally they would. Well, we have one of them, one video where it's interacting with the electricity. It's just hovering in the middle of the room. And as it pulses, the light in the other room next door
ah,
dims. It goes off, which is also what we had for the shadow beings. The shadow beings were also interacting with the electricity.
mhm.
They would manifest, and the light would go off, and then a few moments later it would come back on. It was really weird. Um,
We've had things like that happen in terms of doing ET contact, but there are times where you're not sure if it's like we were saying before, if it's transdimensional beings locally from Earth or from other systems, whatever. You're not sure. What you are sure of is the phenomenon is real, like what you're saying. The orb pulses and a light goes off in your vicinity. You can't you can make that up, but you don't make that up. So whatever that orb is, you've just experienced something that's outside the realm of what we think we understand about our reality. And if that happens to you once, something that paranormal that you believe in, then what else is possible? All it takes is one powerful experience to kind of break open that box, and you stick your head up and you look around and you go, it's a wider universe than I thought, and there are a lot more contact modalities than I ever thought of. Let me experiment some more. So anyway, Jack, I'm glad that you've experienced that kind of thing. It's really cool to see the swarms, as you call them. I
yeah.
got one too, and it was a still picture. I can imagine if it'd been a video, I would have asked them to maybe spell out my name or something. I don't know.
Hey, next time try that.
Okay, yeah, okay. Let's like give me a
Well,
K, give me an O. That's
all right. Well, before we go, you got to tell us about the People's Disclosure Movement and your monthly global CE-5 initiatives.
well, in 2010, I got a communication from my star friends who uh, when I asked the question, what can I do to help you all do your thing, do your mission? I'm sure you must have a blueprint that most of us are not aware of how you're contacting, have contacted, and are going to further contact humanity. I wanted to help. I told them, hey, look, I've got a day job, but in the evenings I can do other things. So, uh, what do you need that I'm able to do to help with your greater plan? They said basically create as many contact teams as possible in as many places as possible as quickly as possible. I said, okay, I've had my own experience. I'm on the internet. I can try to do all that. But I had some questions. I asked, well, why do that? And their answer was, we still honor human free will. And the more that human beings want to see us and interact with us, the more it gives us permission to show up. So as you create more teams around the planet, we will show up more in the skies of cities around the planet. And they literally said in different cities around the world. They added that as they show up in more cities, more people will see them, and that will give them more permission to show up in more places where even more people will see them. And I understood this is an organic growth of a movement, right? Um, and they call this a virtuous circle. We see them, they show up in more places, more of us see them. It was a cooperative, virtuous cycle or circle. So I said, okay, that makes sense. And I said, what's the end game for that? And their answer was, well, someday so many people around the planet will have seen us, want to interact with us, believe that we're benevolent, so many of them that a tipping point will be reached. And after that tipping point, it will be impossible for any government or any institutional authority to cover up ever again our presence like they've done for the last, at that time, 70-ish years. Now it's 80-ish years. He says, it'll be impossible. And I said, I like that. So when is this tipping point? Of course, I had to push. They said it depends on humanity, on your response. We can't tell you. And I have a feeling even if they knew, which I don't think they did, they wouldn't tell me because that's above my pay grade. I kind of wouldn't want to know that, really. I just want to do the work. So I had this idea. We're working for a tipping point. Flash forward a little bit, years later, in another communication with them, when I didn't ask, they unexpectedly, this may have been 2020 during the pandemic years. I asked them, no, I didn't ask them. I was asking them other things, but they volunteered. They said, oh, by the way, that tipping point we talked about, we reached it in 2019. I went, what? Wow, that was groundbreaking for me. I go, so you mean from now on into the future, like the future is ours? They've victimized us in the past, told us we're not seeing what we're seeing, institutionalized us, killed us, made fun of us. That was the past. Done with victimhood. No more victimhood. We own the future now. And this was eye-opening because they gave me a picture, and that was of a snowball. If you can imagine a mountain, a snowball rolling downhill, like an avalanche, but a snowball that gets bigger and bigger. They said the movement that you, Kosta, and all of us, and this is not Kosta's movement, this is our movement, the People's Disclosure Movement, the movement you created that you've been doing since 2010, how was the word, exceeded every expectation we had of you. And that's why you reached that tipping point. It's now a snowball going downhill that cannot be stopped. So I want to let people let that sink in. We're on the winning side of history now. And use whatever metaphor you want. The cat's out of the bag, the genie's out of the bottle, whatever. The future belongs to us. And the People's Disclosure Movement is the fact that we achieved this disclosure in 2019, but it ain't over yet, folks, because there's 1.3 billion adults on the planet who, according to recent scientific research, believe that full-on civilizations exist in the stars and that we should communicate with them. And those are two very specific things. They do exist. They're not a microbe under a rock, and we should communicate. 1.3 billion. I did some of the math based on this research that other people did that was great. And I came up with that number. So my point is we achieved the People's Disclosure through our grassroots effort, people to people, organic growth. Our friends in the skies responded. They kept showing up in greater and greater numbers. Groups have formed all around the planet. And we've been doing this thing every month since 2010, the global CE-5 that we talked about earlier. That global CE-5 was part of that process of us getting to the tipping point. So that's what if nothing else, I want to leave this with your audience here today is take a victory lap. We achieved it. We exceeded every expectation they had. We're a snowball rolling downhill. We can't be stopped. So the future really belongs to us. Keep doing our contact. There's 1.3 billion of us that believe in this, and that's growing every day. Let's keep trying to reach more and more of those people. Now, admittedly, half of those people are not looking at the sky. Their minds may be open, but they're looking for their next meal because humanity's in a crisis in a lot of areas. But given that, those of us who are fortunate enough to know where our next meal's coming from, who have the wherewithal to make contact and to keep this movement going and growing, that's our responsibility. That's on us so that someday those who are barely able to feed themselves can join us in community with a full belly and look up at the stars together with us and look at the wonder and the communication that comes to all of us as a result. So for me, this is the highest mission possible because the People's Disclosure Movement, it's really a spiritual movement in the widest sense of the word, where we're joining the rest of the cosmos and where those of us who believe that there's some intelligent, loving source in this cosmos can understand that this is humanity coming of age. We're becoming cosmic humanity. We can lay aside all our differences, and we got work to do there. But at the same time, we're doing that, as I mentioned at the top of this program, we have the mentorship of those we've contacted who've been down this road and know a little bit more, and they're willing to help us. So that's why I'm a cautious optimist. The People's Disclosure Movement has achieved the People's Disclosure. We didn't have to rely on a government or an institution, a church, to hold a press conference or a prime minister to say, by the way, this is disclosure. And a lot of people are still waiting for that. And there are people that are working for that from the ground up, a grassroots level, which I still support, but we're ahead of the governments. I mean, they will come along because the people are leading. We, our numbers are greater. We have our own experience. People cannot anymore tell us that there's a cover up, that we didn't see what we saw. We know what we saw, and we have a zillion friends in this movement who can validate. We validate each other that this is a real thing. So when people come to etletstalk.com, I give them information about connecting with others, and put them on an email list so I can continue to communicate with everyone and keep this sense of global community. This is a very special cosmic humanity community. And the people making content don't all belong to etletstalk.com. My star friends told me there are networks within networks within networks of those of us. And I don't know most of them because this has grown so big, they tell me, that 24 hours in the day, I don't know most of those people. I just take care of my email list and doing the thing I'm doing, knowing that my star friends have said that others are now active, they're awakened, they're activated, they're doing their thing, they're forming their networks. So we're this wonderful network. And during our global CE-5s every month, I ask people as part of the process to visualize this network, to like be from looking from space and visualize light, a grid of light where all our groups are connected. People we may never meet, we probably never will, except on the inner planes maybe, but we're all still part of this people's disclosure movement. So I tell people, pat yourselves on the back. We did it. And rather than being victims of the past, the idea now is to create the future we want. Our star friends tell us that a golden age is possible. They've actually said that in the higher dimensions, the blueprint for our Earth's golden age is there. It's laid out. It takes time for it, though, to filter down through the dimensions, through time and space, through our free will, our actions, to become a reality in our world. But they assure us that it's there and we just need to grab it. We need to work for it, get along with each other. Again, that's a work in progress on Earth. But it's either that or nothing. I mean, I like to say, I think we're going to have a breakthrough in a good way as a species here on this planet instead of a breakdown. That's our choice right now. We break down and we lose it all. The planet will go on. Humans may not be on it. That can happen. Or we can have this breakthrough where we are cosmic humans. And again, this is a spiritual mission because it's about love. And I haven't had time today to tell the stories about how my star friends have communicated to us in
I can't
different
wait to have you
ways.
back on so you can get into this, some more of the,
Okay, yeah, I got
sorry to,
stories. Yeah. But I want people to know that this is not just about the lights in the sky. It's about the love in the ground and the love in the cosmos. They tell us we humans were created by them in love, and they're here to make sure that we continue and evolve spiritually to a place where they can share openly with us on Earth the amazing technologies they have. And I'll leave people with this, which is imagine the golden age you want. Think about it. If we can get free energy, it'll do away with the fossil fuel game, with creating pollution on a global scale, with people conducting wars to get the oil under someone else's sand. Free energy that will come with full open contact will remake our planet economically. We could have an end to poverty, an end to starving people. We could have an end to the 40-hour work week or the 80-hour work week, whatever you're stuck with, because that will remake our ability to make things so that the creative human spirit will be let loose instead of slaving 40 hours a week. Maybe you have to work 10. I'm just putting these numbers out there, just putting the thoughts. I don't know the details, but the large, the picture is more freedom, freedom from want, from all the things that are are making people sick now or starving them, whatever. Oh, did I mention the medical technologies and all that? We know people who've contacted star people and have had cancers healed instantly, et cetera. So they know a thing or two about, repatterning our DNA and bringing in healing energy from higher sources to remake our physical vessel and regenerate it. They know all this stuff. And what I'm saying is all this is waiting. Think of the golden age you want, all the wonderful things of peace and love, just like the hippies in the 60s. This is possible, and the rock and roll would be good too. Peace, love, and rock and roll. But no matter what your taste in music, it's there for you too. So Anyway, that's what I want to leave people with. It's a sense of cautious optimism. We got this now. We got friends working with us. You're not alone anywhere.
I love it, Costa. That's a beautiful message. And, I'm definitely on team breakthrough, and also team
Me
rock and
too.
roll. Let's bring rock back, man. Let's bring rock back. Okay. All right.
Please.
Where can people find you if they want to learn more, if they want to participate in your global CE-5 initiatives? Where can people find you?
The membership is free. etletstalk.com.
That's
That's easy.
simple.
Yeah, that's it. And you'll get on the email list, and I'll send you some introductory material. I'll send you links to maps where you can find people around you geographically that are in groups that might want to get together with you or become your pen pals or whatever. That's it's community. So etletstalk.com. Like I said, the membership's free, and the future's unlimited.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, Costa. I can't wait for you to come back and tell us more. But everybody give Costa a big thumbs up and a big thank you. And let us know what you think in the comments below. And thank you so much, Costa.
So thank you.